Adrenochrome, the chemical compound, the conspiracies, and the communities impacted. What is adrenochrome? Does it cause schizophrenia? How is QAnon involved in this? How is Epstein slash the Epstein list involved? And are we desensitized yet? Introduction. Unsurprisingly, it took me a while to get to this essay because there are several triggering aspects. I know it is an important topic, but that doesn't mean you should subject yourself to reliving traumatic experiences. If you're not in the right headspace to dive into this with me, please click away from the article slash video now. I will be diving into the science, the chemical composition, the uses of adrenochrome, etc. first, so you shouldn't hear too far into this in the instance that, you take a second to click away. Take the time that you need and don't come back to this if you're not ready. Without further ado, what is adrenochrome? The chemical formula for adrenochrome is C9H9NO3, and it is a compound produced through the oxidation of adrenaline, epinephrine, sometimes called adroxone or pink adrenaline due to its color, initially a deep violet in pure crystalline form. However, the compound is unstable and rapidly follows further chemical reactions, polymerizing into brown or black molecular structures known as melanin. Despite its name, it holds no relation to the periodic element chromium. The suffix chrome is actually an indication to the compound's color. Adrenochrome itself currently has no medical applications, but the semicarbazide derivative carbazochrome is primarily used in managing bleeding disorders as it is an anti-hemorrhagic agent, or sometimes known as a hemostatic agent. Wikipedia Contributors 2023. That includes use as a treatment for hemophilia, which I talked about in the essay, The Romanovs. Hemophilia is a rare disease that causes a person's blood not to clot correctly. While the first image people think about is that they bleed out from a small injury, that isn't typically the main cause for concern. Rather, internal bleeding is much more serious for an individual with hemophilia. I find it interesting that a synthesization of a chemical compound of origin in this essay correlates to something I've already written. I find that it happens a lot with each new essay I write, and it reminds me of the sound no matter where you are, everything is always connected. Anyhow, adrenochrome is mass produced and commercially available. It is not a controlled substance. Wikipedia Contributors 2023. Semicarbazide products are known as antiviral, anti-infective, and anti-neoplastic as they bind to copper or iron in cells. They have significant attention in pharmaceutical research due to having a wide range of biological activity. And semicarbazide derivatives are formed through a reaction with the semicarbazide and aldehydes or ketones. Wikipedia Contributors 2025. A ketone is a chemical compound of two carbon atoms and a carbonyl. Ketones are energy molecules produced from fat when glucose is low. Cleveland Clinic 2023. An aldehyde is an organic compound containing carbonyl grouped with one hydrogen atom and another carbon or hydrogen. Aldehydes are highly versatile compounds with uses in many industries such as food flavoring, fragrances, pharmacy, etc., making them incredibly beneficial to both specialized processes and everyday activities. March 2019. March is the author's name, by the way. For a more in-depth understanding of the chemical compounds, search how does polymerization occur in adrenochrome. I will, however, continue on because I believe the chemical process to be the least likely of which we will get stuck on. I presume that upon the basis that my writings are typically about the processes of conspiracy theory development. Historic information. French physician Alfred Vulpian extracted epinephrine from mammalian suprarenal, I probably said that wrong, glands and realized they turned reddish when exposed to the air in 1856. In 1937, the reasoning behind this was discovered by David Ezra Green and Derek Richter, who had isolated the substance into pure crystalline form and named the compound adrenochrome. Vol 2023. Schizophrenia. From the 1950s to the 1970s, adrenochrome was the subject of limited research as a potential cause of schizophrenia. Wikipedia Contributors 2023. Canadian psychiatrists Abram Hoffer and Humphrey Osmond had noticed similarities between the symptoms of schizophrenia and the effects of mescaline. Through this, they theorized that schizophrenia may be caused by a substance related to adrenaline due to the structural similarities between adrenaline and mescaline. They searched for compounds in the body and landed on adrenochrome after trying it on themselves. They concluded that the substance produced hallucinations. Vol 2023. Certainly, they hadn't convinced themselves to see something in the hopes to align with their hypothesis, because no human has ever seen something odd just because they wanted to. Sarcastic. Bloody Mary, for example. Furthermore, Hoffer and Osmond believed that schizophrenia is due to the accumulation of adrenochrome and could be counteracted with large doses of antioxidants. This didn't hold much merit in the medical community, and when Hoffer and Osmond ran a few studies between 1952 and 1954, claiming successful treatment with heavy doses of niacin and vitamin C, independent studies failed to replicate results. Not to mention, other individuals that attempted use of adrenochrome did not experience a psychedelic effect. Fall 2023. Positing my jest earlier, it is entirely possible that these men had wanted their case to be true so strongly that they had induced these effects on themselves. Moreover, a placebo can still work even if we know it to be a placebo. Marshall 2016. Which then leads me to believe that some people can want to be cured so badly of certain ailments, obviously not like cancer, that they can get better. The use of antioxidants as treatments for schizophrenia is highly controversial. In 1973, Hoffer's work on niacin as schizophrenia treatment was put under scrutiny by the American Psychiatric Association, who reported methodological flaws and referred to follow up studies that did not confirm any of the benefits claimed. Multiple studies similarly failed to find the benefits of megavitamin therapy in schizophrenia treatment. Adrenochrome is also believed to hold cardiotoxic properties, that is, cardiotoxicity as it stands to cause heart failure, arrhythmia, myocarditis, and cardiomyopathy. Wikipedia Contributors 2023. Cardiac arrhythmia is an irregular heartbeat. It can either be too slow, too fast, or simply inconsistent. Some arrhythmias are harmless while others are life threatening. Mayo Clinic 2023. Myocarditis is the inflammation of the heart muscle called the myocardium. This condition reduces the heart's ability to pump blood effectively and can cause rapid or irregular heartbeats. Mayo Clinic 2022. Cardiomyopathy comes in multiple forms and can cause problems with the muscle of the heart, either thinning, stiffening, or otherwise. Many people with cardiomyopathy can have no symptoms, others can have gradually worsening symptoms. Mayo Clinic 2024. Other than that, what I found was that many people believed adrenochrome to be the cause of schizophrenia, but most of the research holds little weight within the medical community. The authors of some of the articles and research tied to this complete certainty, and others never actually state unquestionably that adrenochrome is the cause of schizophrenia. Instead, they suggest that it or some other substance closely related or derived from adrenaline is involved. They held on to the opinion that it is a metabolic fault in the overproduction of such or similar substances to adrenochrome, which then implies either overproduction or a blocking of the detoxification within the body, not inherently adrenochrome. Leah, 1955. Diving deeper, the resource states tyrosine. Tyrosine is the main precursor in adrenaline synthesis within the body. It converts to L-dopa, which turns into dopamine and eventually becomes norepinephrine and adrenaline. PubChem 2019. This process is regulated strictly by the nervous system, particularly the sympathetic, which is activated under stress. Adrenaline is crucial for the body's fight or flight response, including the rapid mobilization of energy reserves for increased cardiovascular output and blood flow to vital organs and muscles. Boundless, Now Lumen Learning 2018. The page titled 14.3a Sympathetic Responses is shared under a CC by SA 4.0 license and was authored, remixed, and curated by Boundless Now Lumen Learning. Essentially, the hypothesis is of an abnormal tyrosine metabolism, at which point other deductions can be made. Leah 1955. I suppose I'll finish this off by stating that a majority of the resources that I came upon in my research of this section were paid to read. So, a lot of the data out there is unfortunately inconclusive. I did the best I could to dissect and help understand the information surrounding this piece of the case I'm building, but it is unfortunately incomplete. Conspiracies and pop culture. Adrenochrome has been the subject of multiple conspiracy theories tied to QAnon and Pizzagate. The chemical also plays a role in satanic ritual abuse stories. Theories stating that a cabal of theistic Satanists R-word, and unalive children, harvesting adrenochrome from their blood to use as a recreational drug or elixir of youth. Wikipedia Contributors 2023. And while it holds little to no truth as a psychedelic compound or hallucinogen, people found that story very provocative. So much so that Aldous Huxley referred to it in his book, The Doors of Perception, 1954. Frank Herbert referenced it in Destination Void, published as a book in 1966. Many others mentioned it as well, including Anthony Burgess mentioning it indirectly as Drencom in A Clockwork Orange 1962. Hunter S. Thompson mentioned it in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas 1971. Though he admitted he'd made it up, it was explicitly referenced on an anti Semitic 4chan message board in 2013 to 2014. An old superstition that claimed Jewish people kidnapped Christian children to drink their blood was built upon to state that they now stole children with the explicit intent to harvest adrenochrome. Fall 2023. Some conspiracy theorists even believe that the 2001 Pixar movie Monsters Inc. is a reference or nod to QAnon's adrenochrome harvesting theory. Walker Journey 2021. The misleading of the conceptualization of adrenochrome as a drug from human derivatives has continued to distance it from scientific fact. Fall 2023, the basis of which has been made entirely clear throughout much of the writing that I've already laid here. Everything the Epstein files say about adrenochrome. There's only one file that comes up under the direct search adrenochrome. The file consists of 7 pages, each with screenshots of messages detailing horrific circumstances surrounding the collection of adrenochrome and organs by Epstein and Associates. U.S. Department of Justice 2026b. This is where things get a little bit confusing to put into place. Scientifically, we know the purposes of adrenochrome are not what they play out in pop culture references. Is the sole purpose of collection then for the purposes of power, or is there actual reasoning behind doing so? Regardless of the reasoning, it doesn't make it right. It just makes the story harder to follow. And the lack of accurate and consistent search engines, as well as the duplicates and sheer number of files, leads me to believe the confusion is intentional. That people aren't supposed to dig, they're just supposed to feel sick and move on. Schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is mentioned 198 times in the Epstein files, including several studies and what seems to be a request for endowment to develop a few studies, including some that are mentioned in other articles in the files surrounding the topic of schizophrenia. U.S. Department of Justice 2026c. I don't believe it has specific ties to the article I'm currently writing, but that doesn't make it any less intriguing. People have been trying to make sense of schizophrenia for a long time because psychosis is one of the things that any person can develop at any moment. Shimie, I probably said that name wrong, 2025. Understanding it on a fundamental scale means understanding how any form of hallucinations occur, which might help understand the interest in the development and use of psychedelic drugs. It seems almost as if Epstein and his associates were making attempts at a version of Unit 731. Keep in mind, I am also developing these thoughts as I am writing this, and this writing should not be taken as concrete proof of anything. Nevertheless, I couldn't see why they would want to do that if not to gain more recognition for solving mental illness, or perhaps for the gratification despicable people find in exerting power over someone less capable of defending themselves. QAnon. QAnon is mentioned 81 times in the Epstein files, tied to domestic terrorism, Russian backed organizations, Trump's campaign, obviously, and much more. U.S. Department of Justice 2026a. QAnon has been connected to hate speech, death threats, and now Epstein, most of which will be unsurprising to those that have a better understanding on the history of the group. One article in the files takes a deeper dive into the danger of this strain of theorists. In October of 2016, a set of emails from John Podesta's account were leaked. Figures like Alex Jones began fronting the claim that Hillary Clinton was running a child trafficking ring out of Comet Ping Pong Pizzeria. Other corners of the internet, including 4chan and Twitter, spread this based on the emails as proof. Theorists claimed that the basement of Comet was where it took place, there was no basement, and that pasta and pizza were code words. A man took to the pizza shop with 3 guns but eventually surrendered to police, stating that the intel wasn't 100%. He expressed regret but never gave an indication that he'd stopped believing that a cabal of elites was abusing children and getting away with it. La France 2020. The crazy thing is, It's true, powerful people have been abusing children and getting away with it, but the stories miss or meaningfully glance over favored celebrities and politicians. The issue that comes up is that many types of traumatic brain injury can affect a person's ability to access the brain's neuroplasticity. That is, their ability to reorganize and form new connections. Jace 2025. What that means is that they either hold contradictory ideals, cognitive dissonance, due to brain injury or simply not having developed their ability to reform thoughts with added information. Now, this is not me saying that every single person in all of history who found difficulty reconciling with facts has brain damage. That'd be crass. What I'm saying is that a lot of people lack the ability to differentiate from what is real, and that only gets worse as we continue to devalue education and prioritize building technology capable of doing all the thinking for us. We continue down that path, we see a lot more needless violence, which only compounds the issue, which drives us further within our own minds. And when I say our, I don't mean literally all of us retreat into our minds. It's more a broad generalization of those suffering from the amount of confusing information, choosing what feels most like what they grew up in. At some point, you must decide for yourself whether you're going to accept only ever being as good or as bad as your father. Perhaps instead you can be the change you wish to see. Perhaps least relevant of all items listed to the topic at hand, memes and desensitization. I find this to be correlated mostly in the sense that these things that were huge conspiracy theories have been revealed to be true, and yet the world just moves on from it. It may not be directly tied to the topic, but it's closely adjacent enough that I find it pertinent to the conversation. The easily ignorable truth of the matter is that adrenochrome has been synthesized for research by biotechnology companies who will sell it to anybody, and it is not a controlled substance. Medically and recreationally, use of this chemical is entirely effortless to gain access to. Wikipedia Contributors 2023. The abuse that powerful people inflicted upon children in the opening of the Epstein case to the public isn't about adrenochrome. It's not about Pizzagate. It's not about any of the conspiracy theories that everybody seems to be so laser focused on. The real reason they do it is because when they get that absurdly rich, they get bored. When they've done everything they can do with money, they go after power and weird ways to exert it. The foundation of the case is that it was another case of a man with too much power using it over anyone. Not unlike the kings that assaulted their followers, many men in modern times are tied closely to history in their actions. The rich and powerful have always gotten away with this sort of behavior, and the use of desensitization as a tactic will always be pertinent to the topic at hand as it stands as a tool to continue the cycle. Kings would give no legitimacy to the children born of the women they assaulted, but they remain cared for, correlated to how modern rulers pay handsome sums to ignore the harm they cause. These actions aren't new, but as long as we accept them by ignoring them, we allow this and much worse things to happen. The actions of horrible men are not the fault of our own, but the society we've created that allows them to exist without consequences is. Final Q&A from the title. What is adrenochrome? A chemical compound that comes from adrenaline, constantly synthesized, widely available, and not a controlled substance. Does it cause schizophrenia? Not tied to the understanding of any research. How is QAnon involved in this? The group was closely tied to the spreading of misinformation surrounding the topic. Some of the things they claimed held truth, found in the Epstein files, but not at all in the order that they correlated them. How is the Epstein list slash Epstein involved? It's pretty much tied to literally everything: adrenochrome, schizophrenia research, Pizzagate, QAnon, pop culture, 4chan, basically this entire essay. And are we desensitized yet? That's for each individual to decide. I think it can help to take some serious reflection on the issue. In a lot of ways, the effects of desensitization protect modern humans from the gruesome sights that they have streamlined to their devices each day. But it also makes people move on from things too quickly. If you haven't given yourself the proper time to sit and digest these topics, it may help you navigate a little easier if you give yourself the grace you reserve for others. I hope this essay wasn't deeply unsettling, but it's incredibly difficult with a topic so closely tied to ritualistic child abuse. Nevertheless, I appreciate the efforts we all make to learn and grow each day. We must make our own heaven on earth, and I think it starts with holding people accountable. And the best place to start is always within yourself. Few truer words have been spoken than that of being the change you wish to see in the world. It is hard, sometimes impossible, to hold hope, but we cannot stop progressing. I'm glad you're here. If you're a fan of investigative journalism, subscribe for free today. If you'd really like to help support my writing, you could subscribe to my Patreon, which helps me cover research materials, i.e., purchasing text, as well as my time and effort in developing topics. Along with that, it supports my real life efforts in making education free and widespread. I thank you for your support no matter what the form is. My references will be included in the Substack and Patreon links in the description, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye!